الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
اطلب العلم أخي فهو درب به نور، به ترقى به تحيا عالما حرا فخور. اطلب العلم أخي فهو درب به نور، به ترقى به تحيا عالما حرا فخور. اطلب العلم أخي فهو درب به نور، به ترقى به تحيا عالما حرا فخور. سل إماما عاش في العلم دهورا ودهور، يطلب العلم ببذل حتى ضمته البحور. سل إماما عاش في العلم دهورا ودهور، يطلب العلم ببذل حتى ضمته البحور. صابرا في العلم صبرا حتى سموه الصبور، يخرج العلم بفأل مثل ريحان الزهور. صابرا في العلم صبرا حتى سموه الصبور، يخرج العلم بفأل مثل ريحان الزهور. اطلب العلم أخي فهو درب به نور، به ترقى به تحيا عالما حرا فخور. اطلب العلم أخي فهو درب به نور، به ترقى به تحيا عالما حرا فخور. كن إذا سموك اسما لتكن مثل الحضور، كن رفيقا كن عظيما كن كما تلك الصقور. كن إذا سموك اسما لتكن مثل الحضور، كن رفيقا كن عظيما كن كما تلك الصقور. راقيا بالعلم نحو النجم مزدان شكور، رافضا كل التدني رافضا نفس الغرور. اطلب العلم أخي فهو درب به نور، به ترقى به تحيا عالما حرا فخور. اطلب العلم أخي فهو درب به نور، به ترقى به تحيا عالما حرا فخور. ابن مسعود فقيه علم أحيا القفور، فإذا أعطاك رأيا كان سهما في النحور. ابن مسعود فقيه علم أحيا القفور، فإذا أعطاك رأيا كان سهما في النحور. وعلي ثم بالدين معاذ لا يبور، اقرأوا التاريخ تروي عنه أفواه سطور. اطلب العلم أخي فهو درب به نور، به ترقى به تحيا عالما حرا فخور. اطلب العلم أخي فهو درب به نور، به ترقى به تحيا عالما حرا فخور. إن سألت عن إمام أو فقيه في الأمور، ابن عباس ترنم وسيبقى في الصدور. إن سألت عن إمام أو فقيه في الأمور، ابن عباس ترنم وسيبقى في الصدور. فهو كالشمعة تذهب حتى تأتينا بنور، ساهر بالليل علم وبأوقات سحور. اطلب العلم أخي فهو درب به نور، به ترقى به تحيا عالما حرا فخور. اطلب العلم أخي فهو درب به نور، به ترقى به تحيا عالما حرا فخور. إذ بكى النبي يوما سمعا صوتا جهور، يا أبي كم روت عنك الليالي والعصور. إذ بكى النبي يوما سمعا صوتا جهور، يا أبي كم روت عنك الليالي.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Alhamdulillah, Islamic Oasis' first ever overseas effort was in Somalia in the year 2011, with projects supporting the internally displaced people with medical supplies at the time. Islamic Oasis director Sheikh Muhammed Shirazi traveled to Somalia over the following years to see what the needs of the people were there and how to best address them. During this time, he built a connection with brother Bakar Huseein Bashir, the director of Disability Aid Foundation, a non-for-profit organization based out of Mogadishu, focusing on advocating for the disabled community. Disability Aid Foundation is a disability-focused organization that seeks to empower people with disabilities and their communities in Somalia and all across Africa as well. Some of the ways they do this is through rehabilitation and care programs, education, promoting sustainable livelihoods, and also advocating for issues related to people with disabilities. For the past few years, Islamic Oasis has been working with Disability Aid Foundation to secure medical equipment, fund schools, and sponsor orphans. By the will of Allah, the tireless efforts of the team on the ground, as well as your donations and your support, have helped countless families and orphans during their time of need. Information on how to donate to these projects is in the description box below, and all of them will be mentioned in this live. Inshallah, tonight we're going to take a different approach to the live, complementing our interview with Brother Abu Bakr and Sheikh Shirazi that we had earlier in the week, with news clips and videos that were taken by the team on the ground. Without further ado, inshallah, Brother Abu Bakr and Sheikh Shirazi are going to inform us what the situation is like on the ground currently.
Yes, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As you may have seen through the social media, Somalia has been in civil war for a long time, and currently there are many families by the drought. The worst famine happened in the country, and that caused many families leave their homes and look for a way or a place where they can survive. And also, many families lost their animals. They could not also do the farming because of no rain or dry season in the country, which has led people suffer a lot in terms of not having enough food, not having a place where they can live in, and also getting a clean and safe drinking water. So people are in a very bad situation, specifically where we have visited Baidoa, region of southwest state of Somalia, where most of the internally displaced people are residing there, because some of them they have been walking all the way from their place to Baidoa. And again, when we visited most of the IDP camps, they tell us that they have been walking for 8 days, 10 days, 30 days walking, and everything they had behind, including some of their children even. So people are suffering a lot, and the situation is in very bad way, because people are really suffering.
I mean, you're talking about a situation where there is a civil war in the country. There is a lot of issues that goes on within the tribes. So there's a lot of tribal problems. Then on the top of that, you have recession going on in the whole world, which is affecting even food prices here. For instance, simple food price, the oil, how much?
Jerrycan of cooking oil, which is 20 liters, used to be 14 US dollar, and now it is 49 US dollar.
I mean, $49.99. Imagine that, $49 just for one jerrycan. I mean, imagine the price of oil, price of rice, price of sugar, price of pasta. I mean, everything has gone up. And
Absolutely.
if people can't farm, then they are becoming dependent on. I mean, they're just. So there's so many things compounded right now with the economic situation going on around the world. The Ukraine war has affected the people here because grain is not coming in the country. That's another real issue. You can see everything. Nothing is cheap here, man. I mean, I can tell you just from being here 10 days, it's nothing is cheap. I mean, the water bottle is what, $1?
Yes.
You know, so
And it used to be like 0.25.
it used to be 25 cents. Well, now you're looking at $1 is a big deal here. I mean, $1, by the way, is 26,000 shillings. You know? People here, they don't deal with cash. You don't pay if I buy $1. I mean, if I buy a bottle of water or if I buy food, no one pays here with cash. It's very rare to see people give cash. Like I saw one place, I think in the whole time that I was here, the guy literally took the cash from the sister she paid and just threw it in a dustbin. He just threw it in a bin. He had a bin of cash, because you're talking about it has no value. So most of the transactions are digital. Mobile banking. So you just take a number of the person you're buying from, and you just pay them on the phone, because nobody's gonna carry $26,000 or cash for $1. Imagine you'll be carrying a truckload of cash everywhere you go to just buy gas.
Yeah, I don't think that would fit in anybody's wallets. So you gotta use the mobile wallets, digital wallets.
People in Somalia, they are very common in doing farming. Now, this is one of the aspects which is causing the famine in the country because people, they used to do farming, but the problem is when they reach the harvesting time, then food aid comes in all the way from WFP from outside of Somalia. And then what happens is when they bring that one, they distribute as a food aid. So those people who did their farming, when they harvest, they will not be able to take their food to the market because no one will buy it. They are getting free of charge food aid. So that is one of the most problems as well that the Somalia people are facing when it comes to the farming sector.
I mean, and it's a continuous problem, man. That what they have done is basically made the whole population dependent on aid. Because now, imagine, I mean, if they want to even grow rice, it will take them 3 months, let's say, right? About 3 months for the first harvest to come out. And so, what will the people do for 3 months if there is no food? So again, they're dependent on aid organizations to give them food and rice and sugar and these things, and but it just continues on and on and on and on unless there's some serious work done while, let's say, you are supporting the people, but on the same at the same token, you're actually doing farming where you are supporting those people, let's say 3 months, but then after 3 months you keep you make the people completely dependent on farming. You know,
But people even stop doing the farming because if food aid is coming in while the harvesting time, then they said why you suffered for farming for almost 3 months or 6 months while people are getting aid which is coming in during the harvesting time. So they are also discouraged to do the farming.
so WFP, for instance, when the war started in Ukraine, they were also very much dependent on getting that grain out of Russia and Ukraine. So what happened was even it was hard for even WFP to get food. I mean, there was a whole situation that they were going through in order to get access to grain. So now they got it with the whole deal that's going on between the Russians and Turkish and Ukrainians and all of this whole deal that's going on. But you know, that's one aspect, right? The second aspect is even when the food comes to, let's say, Mogadishu, getting that food to like area of Bedao, you cannot just take a truck and send it there. I mean, these guys fly it in planes. I
Yeah.
mean,
So
you go to Bedao Airport. The airport is not a regular civilian airport. I mean, it's a military airport. It was a military airport. So you see the whole airport is garrisoned, completely, ready for anything that can go down. Completely, there's barbed wire everywhere. There's checkpoints after checkpoints after checkpoints after checkpoints. You can't imagine the amount of security that's there at the airport. It's a whole complete, it's a military airbase.
it's
And
too
then
risky. It's too
the
dangerous for them to send on the ground, so they have to send it through the plane. Is what you're just.
Yeah, so they send them
Yes.
to planes, and you see the UN and EU and WFP planes on the ground. It's very common to see in almost actually, unfortunately, every African country you go to, including Pakistan and other countries. It's very common to see UN and WFP and these aeroplanes on in the airports.
Surprisingly, Somalia saw an averaged 3.1 GDP growth rate annually over the past 20 years. This is not felt among the majority of the people, however. Despite the apparent steady growth over this period, almost 7 out of 10 Somalis are below the poverty line.
Well, the thing is that, look, I think every project that we go into now, we have to think about how to make sure that we are able to make the projects, number one, sustainable, and also bring the Inshallah Rabbul Alameen, and also be able to make the people themselves look. The people are they're skilled people. I mean, as far as farming, they know how to do this stuff. But of course, this whole situation has made them completely kind of, you know, kind of give up, right? Constant, imagine security, there is no such thing. You could be going on in a car somewhere just thinking I'm just going home, and all of a sudden there's a blast. You know, it's so common. I mean, since the day I came here till today, I think there's been what, how many bombings?
Almost
7 bombings. Just the 10 days, so almost one on average. So this is another problem that the people are dealing with, right? Even those farmers who want to farm, you need a healthy market, and then markets are being blown up to pieces, and people are being blown up to pieces. So you can imagine the mindset, I mean the minds, what's happening inside the minds of the people that, you know. So they just kind of give up and they say, look, whatever I'm getting, I'm just gonna take it and go and khalas, I don't care. So that's one. So one thing that we have to do is, uh, you know, provide skills. Uh, we are going, you know, we're working on, inshallah, doing some type of farming projects, animal farming, chicken, for instance. We are looking into construction where the people can make bricks and build their homes. You know, that's
as
another
well
thing.
teaching women how to do this.
For sewing machines, for instance, that's another thing that we're trying to do, is that because you see thousands of kids, right, without clothing. They've been wearing the same clothes for probably last, you know, months, man. I mean, it's crazy. Like, you don't see kids with shoes on. There is no, I mean, it's just, they don't have the money. What are they going to do? So they're just surviving day by day. I mean, I couldn't take a shower for just, if I didn't take a shower here 3 4 days, your whole body is scratched. And you just imagine what these kids are going through or what they're used to. So, providing, you know, supporting or building skills amongst the sisters so that they can sew their own clothing and then sell it in not only in the markets but also in the camps. You know, organizations like us, then we can buy from them and then distribute to the people. So that brings jobs. Inshallah, yani building homes, building schools, building, you know, supporting medical sector. There's a lot of work that's ahead of us, and most of the work, inshallah, will be sustainability work. I mean, even to the point what Brother Abu Bakr works with, we work with so many disabled kids,
Yes.
you know, visually impaired, for instance. How many you are working with? Almost, I mean, you work with so many brothers, not only 36 here, but in every camp, you know, disabled, 400 here, 50 here, 100 here.
I've been working more than 300 persons with disabilities, including the children with visual impairment, children with hearing impairment, and those with physical disabilities, both in camps and also in the
But and what percentage of the foundation you're looking for? I mean, about 5%, is it?
It's 5%, yeah, the total population.
And you're looking at 5% of the population is going through disabilities, right? Either they're deaf or they're blind or they're missing limbs. On the top of that, there's a lot of because of the blast, people are missing their arms and legs. You see a lot of people on the streets with wheelchairs. A lot of people need legs. What do you call those? The
The artificial
crutches.
artificial legs.
Or
The artificial
prosthetic.
legs, prosthetics. Man, is such a big need here for that. It's beyond belief.
Brothers and sisters, alhamdulillah, Brother Abu Bakr and Sheikh Shirazi have spent the last few weeks in Somalia doing different types of programs as they've been talking about. These include food distribution, water tanks for those living in the camps who don't have access to water, supplying equipment for those with disabilities such as wheelchairs and canes, supporting educators, Quran teachers, supplying orphanages with the proper equipment that they need, as well as the funding of a Braille Qur'an, the first of its kind in Africa, which will inshallah benefit many of those who are visually impaired. Be sure to check the description box for relevant QuickPay and Zelle information. I think it was Oasis went to Somalia in 2011 first, right? So how's the situation has changed and developed? Obviously, you know, what pressing issue right now would be the drought that people are facing. But if you could just touch on that. What is the situation like today compared to say like 11 years ago?
What do you think, brother? Bakar,
Yeah.
you would be the best one to
Sure.
talk about. I mean, I'll give my own
Better.
opinion, but
Yeah.
2011, there was the worst drought in the country when they came to Somalia as well, and took a great role in providing medical supplies and also shelter programs in the camps. But the year from 2012 to 2019, even though people were always having challenges, again now it seems that the drought or the famine this year is more worse than 2011 because most of the families they lose all their animals, they lose everything they had, and that is why when we visited Baidoa, most of the IDPs, the internally displaced people, are really suffering with no food, with no proper shelter, with no safe and clean drinking water. So
no
it's
bathrooms.
no bathrooms at all. Imagine like our sisters or our mothers having no toilet at all in the camp. And when we ask about where they can get a washroom, they said we just to go and hide somewhere in the IDB camp, and
La hawla wa la
because there is no washroom at all in all the IDB camps. And again, a friend comes in when they don't have the proper shelter where they can hide the rain from. So I can say that this is the worst situation ever. Uh, as even many people mentioned, including the drought committee, blah blah, all of them, they always say that the current situation is worse than the 2011, where we had also one of the main famine problems. So you can see all the women having nothing to eat. We met a woman who's almost 70 something to 80 something years old, telling us that she never breakfast. She never ate anything since she has been walking all the way from where she comes from to Baidoa, like 8 days or 7 days or 10 days. So you can understand that the situation is not easy at all. And Alhamdulillah, with the little we can get, Islamic Oasis responded to the internally displaced people and give out what we can. And inshallah, we are also planning to continue and also provide aid as much as we can, inshallah.
I mean, on the top of that, you can imagine pregnant sisters, right? Pregnant women. Just there is no hospitals. I mean, there is a hospital, they are not functioning at all. They're empty buildings. There's no medicine. Uh, so, you know, there is no hygiene things that sisters need. For instance, um, man, it's a disaster, man. It's a disaster beyond belief. You know, you have to be. Sometimes you just really have to be on the ground to see how bad the situation is, right? I mean, people are taking turns begging so that they can survive that day. Or I mean, man, you should see the du'as that sisters were making when they got food in the water. I'm drinking water. You actually feel guilty. I have a bottle of water here. You feel guilty that I have two or three sitting right in front of me, and we were feeling guilty drinking water in front of the people because many of them cannot get clean water like this.
Wallahi, that's subhanallah.
You can
Allahu
see
Ta'ala.
also when we visited in the IDB camps, you see that a woman gives birth in the bush.
Yes.
And then in the morning, she has to run to the town to beg because she don't have even a milk to give to the young baby, which recently was given birth. And also the problem is you can see even if they get water, they don't have where to keep it.
That was
Uh,
another problem.
you can also
Yeah.
see that they don't have even the kettle to cook with or to boil the water in order to have tea. So the situation there is really something that beyond explanation.
I mean,
Yeah.
what's even more crazy is that the area of Baidoa, you know, the this is where they have come, right? Now imagine where they came from. Those areas they walked. We don't have access to those areas. Aid organizations don't have access to those areas either because they're too dangerous. They walk through this path, passing through, different militias, different groups, different this, that. They got it somehow. They got here, but aid organizations, they don't have access to those areas.
Some refugees walk without food or water just to find safety. Conditions inside the camp are desperate as well, as Sheikh Shirazi and Brother Abu Bakr relay from their experiences. How many people do you think would be displaced in Somalia right now? I remember first time I heard just kind of the estimates, the people who are living in the 10 cities in Syria, where it's in the millions, hundreds of thousands, like a whole city full of tents. How much of the population do you think is living in this condition, or at least in near these cities that you guys are operating in?
Oh yeah, I mean, how many IDPs?
It's almost close to 2 million to 3 million people displaced.
We were talking, what, 50% of the population is displaced?
Yes.
50%. Look, the total population of Somalia is 20 million. Okay, 20 million people. So you're looking at, if they say about 7 to 8 million displaced totally from the war, from the beginning of the war. Okay, so you're looking at almost 50% of the population displaced, living in camps, tents, shelters. Diaspora left the country. Many of them. Kenya has a whole different camp by itself. The Dadaab, what's it called?
Nada.
The Dadaab, the famous. It used to be the largest refugee camp in the world before Syrian situation. So that's.
And also in the information I have seen that it is almost 900,000 animals were lost as well.
900,000 animals by themselves. Can you imagine that? I mean, there's some pictures that we have. We'll share them with you maybe later. But dead cows all over the place, just dead, thousands. And you're talking about 900,000 animals died. So you can imagine what it looks like when the families have just lost thousands and thousands across the.
Yeah.
People are walking across the village with just dead animals everywhere. I mean, first of all, let me tell you, aid workers don't go out of the. You don't see aid workers, bro. I'm different, brother. Abu Bakr is different. We are going to areas. I mean, you'll talk to aid worker here. He will say, "I've been here 10 years. I've never been outside Mogadishu. Hell, I haven't been outside my compound." It's funny as these guys are sitting here making $93,000 you said a month sometimes.
Yes.
These guys are making money you can't imagine, and they're sitting there, nice hotels over there. They have never been outside, actually, in the areas because it's too dangerous for them. They're worried because imagine, I mean, who wants to go in areas you can get shot at, blast can happen, kidnapping.
So because of that, they
So
stay
those
in
guys,
their place. They stay in their.
yeah, so they sit in their compounds. And how many aid workers are here? I mean, the whole UN is here, bro. EU is here, WFP is here, all kinds of large, huge organizations are here, but all of the work is being done obviously by local Somalis, not by those the guys who are official. They're sitting in their hotels and doing their paperwork. That's it.
Yeah.
And pay most of the money in the hotel.
And paying to the hotels. The hotel business is a big business here now. Security is big business. Car rental is big business. Hotels are big business. So that's how the whole thing is working. I mean, that's one thing. I want to seriously let the brothers and sisters who are watching know that we are different. We are actually in the areas where situations are happening directly on the ground. I mean, anything is possible where we are. And Allah protect and preserve all of us. I mean, we all have families and children like this. But just letting you know the kind of conditions that people, we are working in.
Give other.
I'll tell you one thing. Look,
Yeah.
the way we are looking at, when you start looking at the problem from ideological perspective, right? These are our brothers and sisters.
Yes.
These are not just a job. We're not doing this for the sake of, okay, let's just do it because it's aid. And no, this is a responsibility we will have to answer to Allah Azza wa Jal. That the situation our brothers and sisters are in. We will have to answer about them. This is not we are an aid organization, do this and that, which is
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
This is when you are there on the ground, when you're working with the people, when you see them, when you realize the suffering of this ummah and what needs to be done. You don't care. You just want to make sure that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts your work, that inshallah that you end up in Jannah, and that you are able to be of benefit for the ummah. And of course, this also opens up a lot of learning opportunities, which we ask Allah to open the doors for.
Alhamdulillah, as we have said, for the first time in Africa, not in Somalia, we started producing the Braille Mushafs. Alhamdulillah, which is Islamic Oasis supported. And this is just an open eye to the visually impaired people to have access to the holy book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to read, to memorize, because previously they used to memorize the Quran just by hearing the Quran. But now they can read with their fingers, and this is the most important thing that we have been looking forward, Alhamdulillah. So this is a great project, and a project that will lighten the Holy Quran to our brothers who are visually impaired people in Somalia, as well in all Africa. One thing I remember is since I have started this job 2006, visually impaired people used to ask brothers and sisters in Asia, in Europe, in America to get for them Braille book or Braille Mushaf. But this is a good way forward in making the Mushafs in Braille ready format for the blind people to be able to read, inshallah. And also the other thing is the situation of the visually impaired people in general in Somalia. They lose their sight because of lack of vitamin A. They lose because of the civil war which has been going on in the city. They lose their sight because of cataract, which is curable. They also lose their sight because of measles and many other problems. You can see many children with the cataract, and Alhamdulillah, I would like to mention that as in Islamic Oasis, we did last year cataract operation to many blind children who are affected by cataract, and Alhamdulillah, who regained their sight and now went back to their families. So such programs is also needed in the country, but also putting all our efforts in the producing of Braille Mushaf ready for our brothers and sisters who are blind will help a lot, and will ease them to understand, to read, to memorize the Quran, inshallah. So this is a beginning for the Somalia, but also our main agenda is to provide the whole brothers and sisters who are visually impaired in East Africa and also in Africa in general. With the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Islamic Oasis, we managed to get the machines to produce the Braille Mushafs. But now there is a huge need in terms of getting the papers to print the Quran. We need to get proofreaders, we need to get transcribers, we need to get people who can format the Mushaf, edit, and also translate it into Braille. So there is a lack of teachers and a lack of staff when it comes to produce the Braille Mushaf, as well teaching the blind children. Uh, because if you have all the resources available and you don't have teachers, you can understand how challenging it is. So we have all the machines, we have the meaning to do it, but then we need a lot of staff when it comes to starting from formatting the Mushaf, editing, translating into Braille, proofreading, printing, binding the books. So all those kinds of work, we need people who can do it as well. We need teachers who are able to teach the blind children. Uh, the teachers are there available, but now the payment, their salary is also a challenge to us here. So we will really appreciate if we can get support in making sure that teachers are paid, the supplies like the braille papers, the everything that is needed to be used in the braille printing press is really what we are looking forward. And also for the blind children, not only Quran. In the morning they study Quran, then from like 8 o'clock to 12 o'clock they go to normal classes where we teach them the English, the math, the rest of the subjects. In the afternoon also they also memorize the Quran. Yeah, so uh, it's just a very, very important and a big project which needs to be put a lot of efforts and support in terms for us to run this printing mushafs for the first time in Africa, to run it smoothly and also with success.
Inshallah, may Allah put barakah on the project and make it very successful. Inshallah, inshallah, this will benefit a lot of the brothers and sisters who have the visual impairment. Just in general, right? Kind of pivoting to another topic, right? So there's a lot of all these things that we've talking about that your brothers have filled us in on about the situation of Somalia, with situations where security is what it is, and there's potentially hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of people living in the camps. What is, from your experience, I'm sure Brother Abu Bakr, we would love to hear from you. What is your understanding is of how is this affecting the generation, the younger generation, the ones who are pretty much born in these conditions? I mean, what do you see life is like for them?
Actually, life is very difficult to them, and security is number one issue in this country, Somalia. Since the civil war broke out, there was clan fighting, actually major clans fighting one another, which was making people to die, which was making people to suffer a lot in terms of moving from one place to another place, which is very, very difficult. Uh, and also the fighting which is going on sometimes between the government and the other group also is also a way of making people suffer a lot. uh, you can understand someone who have been living in a place with a good life or whatever they had, enjoying. But now when the situation changes, when the fighting, sometimes you might hear there is airstrikes. Uh, Maybe they are targeting some people, but again they are making people suffer. So most of the families run away from their homes due to crisis or due to the air strikes problems, because they might not be meant to them, but the strike might affect their families, and that is what usually happens. Also, bomb blasts is fighting between one clan to another clan. That is what makes them suffer and run away from their own homes to where they are. uh, Live alone, talking about those IDPs. Like myself, I have been away from my homeland for the last 13 years, and I ran because of insecurity that area, and I did not go back to where I born with. So you can understand that the security situation is always something which people thinks about. Like our brothers and sisters who are in the IDP camps now, they have a lot of challenges. Uh, Snakes might bite them.
Snakes, scorpions.
Someone with a weapon might go to the camp, might do whatever they want to the families. So there is always a challenge. There is always a problem wherever they go to. So I can say that situation is not easy in regards to security, leave alone stay in hunger or without drinking water. So security is that way. And even if you intend to support your brothers and sisters in the IDP camps, you have to think twice or three times. You never know even what will happen. Even, for example, like myself, when we are coming out from the houses, we usually say, Tawakkal to Allah, but we never know whether we will be back safe or not. So you always ready for death.
They were telling me, we just, brother, just make sure you make wudu and leave the hotel every day because you just don't know what's possible.
The U.S. is looking to basically send more supplies to the African Union as well. This type of thing is still ongoing, even though the
I mean,
U.S.
look,
has
the
been open,
AU,
trying
you
to
know,
say that they want to get out of different countries, yet the U.S. is,
well, of course, the so-called scramble for Africa. I'm sure you know the terminology, right?
like many countries, Somalia has to deal with its colonial history. There was a period in time in the late 1800s, which is known as the Scramble for Africa. This scramble for Africa was a term used by European colonial powers to essentially divide different areas of the continent amongst themselves into different provinces, different states, making use of the raw material, the resources that are there, and being able to continue doing that.
That there is the French in one part of the Africa, the Americans in another part of Africa, the Italians are in another part of Africa, the British are in another part of Africa. So this is the whole thing. Like in the north, if you look at Mali and if you look at the whole area of Senegal, Timbuktu, this whole area was all Francophone. I guess they call them speak French, and all of this is because of French. These are French colonies, basically. And if you look at the African Union is what Uganda,
Yes,
uh,
Uganda, Burundi,
Burundi, Djibouti,
Djibouti, Kenya,
Kenya,
Ethiopia,
Ethiopia,
Nigeria.
Nigeria, and if you look at almost every one of these countries, right? You look at Somalia has its own civil war going on. You have Nigeria; it has its own problem going on with Boko Haram. I mean, they call them Boko Haram. You look at right now Ethiopia, the problem that is going on with what is the name of the area now they're fighting?
TBLF.
Yeah, the Tibet. What is it called?
It's called
The area where I think they're having an issue with. I mean, so Ethiopia itself is fighting. It's
Mekele.
no
Mekele
something with
area.
a T.
TBLF.
TBLF, I think. There's all this. So the whole area, and now there's this whole politics of the Nile River also that's going on. That goes from I think Eritrea all the way up to Egypt and Sudan, all the way up to Egypt. That's a new problem that's going to begin in this area. I mean, look, this whole area is completely it's a colonial setup. It's
Yeah,
being controlled by foreigners for its resources. These are very rich countries in many ways. They have a lot of resources, and those resources are being exploited in ways you can't imagine. Right? I mean, just I mean, it has the largest coastline in the world, Somalia.
really.
Of course, I mean, you look at the whole Indian Ocean. Just think about how large, this whole coastline is, and what you could do with salt, with all of the other things that areas like this bring. But it's just the country has been divided. Country has been basically, it's being exploited. Certain areas, no one probably even knows. I bet you, look, there's many people in Somalia who've never seen Badao. I mean, is that the right statement? It's probably never. They've never seen anything else other than Mogadishu. Mogadishu is their life. I mean, that happens across the world, but I'm just saying that so there's a lot going on here, man. And so if this is Somalia, you can imagine what's happening in Central Africa, what's happening in Chad, what's happening in in Mali. Like now, Mali is also cut off completely. There's only one area of Mali that is allowed for countries to send them aid. There's a huge mess going on across. So there's a new also with China and America and Russia trying to gain access to Africa. That's
Yeah,
another scramble that's going on. So they, I mean, the world is basically this has become a chess game for powerful countries to exploit.
hmm
Before it was France and America and Britain,
yeah. It
and
was a
now China.
separation.
So it's a whole new game, and who knows what kind of wars will begin in this area for different powers. And I have a very nasty feeling that what is happening in Taiwan between the US and China might actually play out in Africa.
Really?
Because for them, Africa is the blood in Africa is very cheap. So they might fight it out, so-called the proxy wars in Africa, rather than fight a big war on Taiwan because it's too expensive for both powers. Exactly what they had done in the past, right? The British won't go directly and fight the Americans because it's too expensive for both and too bloody. So they will fight in Africa with two different countries, whether it was Sierra Leone, whether it's Central Africa, whether it's Libya, all of this. So there's a lot at play, and we need to watch this very carefully. What's taking place in all of this region of Africa. It's actually one of the most important regions of the world.
I guess Sheikh Shirazi, if you want to give just kind of you have the political background, if you want to give kind of some final thoughts on that, and as well as obviously the different projects.
Well, the thing is that look, unfortunately, the way the situation is here, it's here. I mean, it's a very sad situation, and it's the people are almost in a quagmire, right? Because of 30 years of war that has sent the people almost 100 years in the past. Infrastructure is nowhere to be found. Everything that you actually see being built here is being only built for the sake of big organizations that need to have some type of safety only for themselves. This, the infrastructure that you're seeing is not made for the average people on the street. The average people don't know what that means, right? So all these areas have become nothing but areas for exploitation. And unfortunately, until the Muslims make up their mind seriously and become serious about what to do, and to unite this ummah and to bring a leadership that can actually take care of this ummah, we are looking at a disaster for the next 100 years if this thing goes on this way. I mean, you're looking at, think about, man, I mean, education of the kids. If you're talking about 50% of the country is IDP, can you imagine what education? Is there even such thing called education for these kids?
Yeah, true.
50% of the country, 40%, 37% of the country, there's no education. Kids don't know how to write their own names. You talk about the soldiers that are protecting us, right? These safety guys. I think most of them, one guy out of maybe 5, 6 guys that are there went to school, and the highest level he went was 6th grade. The rest of them never went to school. He said, I know my guns and I know my knives. I don't need to know any of this.
Yeah.
This is the future. How can you have future for a country like this?
Brother Abu Bakr, and we could bring it to you. Final thoughts that you want our viewers to leave with, inshallah.
Yeah, thank you very much. Jazakumullahu khairan for the program. And one thing I can say is that people really here in Somalia need a lot of support in terms of getting a proper education for the children in the IDP camps, orphanages, and also children with disabilities, as well our brothers and sisters suffering in the internally displaced camps also need our support. And Jazakumullah khairan for the support you have been offering up to now. And I say that Somalia people needs you as the country gets better and people gets back to where they come from, and they do their own farming and do their own skills. So Jazakumullah khairan, that's what I wanted to add.
May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward the efforts of our brothers Abu Bakar Huseein Bashir and Sheikh Muhammed Shirazi, as well as everybody who supported these projects, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant them all the highest place in Jannah. Ameen. If you are interested in supporting any of the projects that we've spoken about during this live, be sure to check the description box for relevant QuickPay and Zelle information. Jazakumullahu khairan for watching, and inshallah we will see you next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
قد أنابا وإلى الله استجابا، إن من يرجو الثواب لا يبالي بالصعاب. في سبيل الله نمضي نبتغي رفع اللواء، فليعد للدين مجد وليعد للدين